welcome to another one of our little chats, and today I am joined by Graham Newman. He is the County Councillor for the Felixstowe Division, and I've probably missed a little bit of that title out, but he's also the County Council person responsible for the education sector. Have I got that right?
Education and young people.
Education and young people. It's so many titles, that's the trouble. Thank you for coming in, Graham. It's a pleasure to see you.
It's like a Panasonic product number, isn't
Yes.
it? It doesn't mean a thing to anybody else except us.
Put the little letters behind it. We were talking about the railways again, because the last time I had a chat with Therese, it was about the railway, the dualling of the line, and it was very much the threat of our rail service between Felixstowe and Ipswich being cut off, effectively, losing that. I understand, obviously, there's been in the papers that we've still going to have a railway system, but thankfully we're not losing our commuter line. But what is happening with the rail network? Because Hutchinson Ports is threatening to close it and or dual it and all sorts.
Well,
what's happening? Because I know you've been working with Therese.
I mean, the original deal as part of the development of the port at Felixstowe was that in due course the port would pay for the dualling of the track at least for about 4.5 miles from Trimley up to just the outskirts of Nacton.
Mm-hmm.
However, things since that grand plan was first announced, we're talking about going on 10 years ago.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Obviously, the sort of commercial position of port activities has changed quite a bit. Not least the coming of the London Gateway on the Thames estuary. So that's quite a severe competitive force on the Port of Felixstowe.
Absolutely.
And let's not underestimate the value of the Port of Felixstowe to Suffolk, because I reckon that something like 10% of all employment in this county is actually dependent on the Port of Felixstowe. When you just think about the workforce at the port, the workforce in all the peripheral activities like the warehousing, the logistics, people who drive trucks, all that stuff, and then of course there's the shops that people use in Felixstowe because they work down at the docks where they spend their money in the shops. When you add it all up, you'll easily get to 30,000 jobs.
Yes.
And when you then look at the total number of people in the county who are in full-time employment, what do you get?
Exactly, yes.
You know,
there's a lot of things
300,000, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's about 10% of the entire workforce of the county. So very important that we keep Port of Felixstowe competitive. But on the other hand, we don't want to be cutting off our resort and saying, well, we're not resorting, but we don't need a railway service. You only have to look at the Ilfracombe's of this world and lots and lots of towns around the country which used to have a railway at the seaside, used to be commutable, both getting away from the port and also bringing people in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I can remember last August we had a day where, they had to cancel one of the trains on our line because 200 people tried to get on. It was a lovely hot sunny day early in August, and they had to cancel the train because it was a safety issue.
Yes.
You couldn't get any more people on it. So, just
because was it
situation,
single carriage?
Yes, single carriage.
Well, they do,
and lots of people wanted to come because it's a nice sunny day, So we don't want to lose our resort status, and there's lots of businesses in the town which are dependent on the resort. And of course, the other thing that's very important about the train service running is that the cost to young people of being mobile at all.
Because a lot of students commute in.
Well, that's right. And when you look at, these days, actually you buy your car and then you pay twice that amount of money for insurance.
Sure.
So let's say you spend £500 or £600 on a car, your first car, but to insure it, it's going to cost you over £1,000. And now they've changed the rules now so that even ladies have to pay the same as men. That's made it more expensive for everybody. I mean, there was a differential between ladies and gentlemen previously, but not anymore. There isn't. So everyone's paying an awful lot of money in insurance. But it's a real limitation on mobility and getting employment. So the railway is there, and we need it in place there for people who don't want to travel or can't afford to run a car. And I'm passionate about keeping the railway going in Felixstowe, and we've now got the commitment that Network Rail are investigating the possibility of, instead of doing a very long sort of dualling stretch, to actually do passing places at strategic points.
Yes, because it is
so
actually.
You might have a passing place just on the Felixstowe side of Westerfield.
Yes.
And perhaps another one a bit further down the line around
So it was the
in the
Ipswich
Acton
Bend
area.
because Trey said about.
Well, that's another piece of work.
Ipswich Bend.
Network Rail are already providing this new double track to go from Westerfield round to Stowmarket, avoiding Ipswich. Now, there's two reasons for that. That is so that the port's traffic, instead of having to go into Ipswich to either then get the electric locomotive to haul it through London, or to turn the train around in some way, put the locomotive on the other end. Yeah, now we have to go straight through on the line.
Because you do see it sat at Ipswich train station on the London line.
And of course the pressure about going through London is, with the new London Gateway opening up, all what they call the paths, that's sort of available space for a train to run from, I don't know, it's going to be the other side of Tilbury, through to what will be going out to Willesden and off to Harrow and Watford, that way out of London. That capacity may well be taken up by London Gateway trains.
Of course,
so we need to take our trains direct across country, which of course we can do. There's railway in place there, because it goes out to Bury St Edmunds, then onto Ely onto Peterborough, and then you get from Peterborough to Leicester.
Ely was a pinch point that Trace was talking about.
Get to Nuneaton and go up the West Coast Main Line. So they can do all that stuff. And Network Rail are already doing a lot of work at Ely, so that there's more capacity there, there's more space for trains to pass, and more trains just north of Ely. There's a junction there where you either go to Peterborough and go due north to King's Lynn, or you can go northeast off to Thetford and Norwich. And only one train at the moment can pass over that junction at any one time. So what they're doing is reconfiguring the track so that many trains can
because you have to
pass
stop
at the same time. Yeah.
And there's a lot of
stop outside.
She said poor Ely get a lot of containers sat outside there.
And that's sort of further exacerbated by the fact you've got level crossing outside Ely station as well. So not a good place to go.
Because the other thing with that is obviously the trains that come through this area. It doesn't just have an impact on sitting at the traffic lights. It has an impact on the cost of housing in the area as well, and it has a knock-on effect on a lot of things. But the other thing with that was she brought up something I couldn't quite hear her. It was to do with the amount of containers being pulled on rail, to do with the Olympics. Something about they increased the amount.
Well, that's right. You see, because
I didn't quite hear
the
it, so I don't want to quote her on this.
Well, I think when we had the Olympics on, there was a more intensive train service running in the London area, so it was less possible for freight trains. Again, this sort of question of the paths, a train being able to get through, and then another train following it through. There were less paths available during the Olympics because more passenger trains were running. So what did they do? They diverted them cross country, and actually it worked remarkably well.
Well, that's how it used to.
And we've got limitations on it because we've got a single track section between a place called Chippenham Junction, which is the other side of Bury St Edmunds, and Ely, because there's a single track section there, and we've got that sort of pinch point at Ely North Junction, which they're now opening up. So with all these things opened up, it's possible to get a proper comprehensive cross-country service running for the freight trains, and so therefore you want to make sure that all can continue to feed it.
Everything used to move by rail or by canal, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Ultimately, before lorries came about, that's how it moved.
It's relatively recent.
And we ripped all our railways up, so it's always looking at bringing back some of the railway networks, because we had one of the best railway networks in the world at one point for how we moved our stuff up and down.
Well, that is happening to some extent, but not around here.
They're putting track back. It's more up north way.
And it's very, very costly.
And that's how they put fish. Did you know that's how they first ended up with frozen fish in Scotland, was on a railway train? Because it came out of Lowestoft in its thing and went up to...
Give a good example though, just how much it costs. We've just spent £4 million at Beccles to make a passing place on the Ipswich to Lowestoft. Right.
Yeah.
I think the entire budget for single tracking that line back in the 1970s was about £4 million. And we've built 800 metres of passing place at Beccles. Cost the same £4 million. So it's incredibly expensive to do this.
But it's a long-term investment in the infrastructure of the country, isn't it? At the end of the day, I mean, we need to keep our port running, and obviously everything in general.
It's getting very expensive to drive around, and let's be honest. When we do get to the point where the economy recovers, the first pinch point you will find will be fuel will get incredibly expensive.
Yep.
We've been loitering around this £1.40 a litre business for some little while now, and we're in the doldrums. What happens when there's real demand in the economy? that would be 150,
Yeah.
170, 180, even
I can
£2
see
a
few.
litre.
I mean, I can remember watching the lorry strikes on TV when they used to just sit on the road and not go anywhere. They just used to strike over the road. I can see it happening again. Personally, I think it will. Lastly, on roads, toll roading. This dreaded word keeps bounding around. People are talking about toll roading. What on earth is going on?
Well, I mean, I think that probably in the context of East Anglia, we are talking about the A14 between Cambridge and Huntingdon, because that is a very congested stretch.
Yes.
Before joining the A1 at the northern end, or the M11 on the southern end. And I mean, there's been, I can remember Mr. Prescott in the previous government promising that we're going to get it all sorted out.
Yeah.
There's a terrible accident up there one day. We're going to get all this sorted out. And here we are, 12 years on, and still
hasn't been sorted out.
And it may be good, perhaps 20 years before it is fully sorted out. But in a sense, because there is so much commercial traffic on that stretch, I do think that you really have to ask ourselves a question about tolling, because once again, it sort of puts a penalty on our East Anglia ports. And all the economic endeavour that comes from them.
Because I think it was £2.50 a lorry, wasn't it, or something like that?
I don't know what toll that. I mean, when you think about the M6 toll, I mean that's £8 now or something.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to go on there. And then you get a nice ride because no one can afford to go
Nobody's
on
there.
It's all people are expensive council using it. But,
If they do put a toll on there, I mean, obviously it's going to have an impact on the rural areas around that, because
well,
people
that's
are going to
another point, of
be
course.
diving off the road, aren't they? And
as every lorry driver will tell you, when the A14 has been shut between those two
they come
roads,
through curve.
you come off the A14 at Newmarket and say we'll go up through Ely and go that way. Well, it's pandemonium. They're all single track roads.
Let's ring roads, get called for.
You're just talking about the level crossing at Ely Station, which is a major holding point for. So you just get ridiculous tailbacks happening there. We don't really want to incentivise lorries to start not using the principal routes. So I have very mixed feelings about the benefit of tolling it myself, and particularly because Southampton won't have to face that problem, Liverpool won't have to face that problem, the North East ports won't have to face that problem. It's a disincentive to what has been a successful at Felixstowe.
It's almost isolating it, really.
Felixstowe has always been at the forefront of developments of port logistics and activity.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the vehicle booking system we've got now. We never have to have Operation Stack now.
Oh, I know.
Very rarely, because they've got the arrival of lorries to the port under such tight control. They can tell people a long way off, look, we've got a problem, it's windy, don't even set out. So they don't set out, so there's no one sitting around. We don't have to have people parked up down the old A45.
I know, we haven't seen that for a while, have we?
No.
A few years. So is there a deadline on this decision for a toll, or is it
we're
going
told
to be
it's
a
gonna be
rumbling ongoing
It's going to be
thing again?
within the next few weeks,
Yeah.
but I think there's an intent to go with it, but I should personally be disappointed if it is for a toll road.
It's just another thing that it looks as though we're being singled out.
Well, exactly.
And it's
And actually it's a tax on success.
Yes.
That's the thing that's wrong. We don't have.
because they'll be scratching their heads in about 20 years' time, going, "What did we do wrong?"
Where did it all go?
And we can go back to this interview and say, "There we go." Well, anyway, Graham, it's been lovely talking to you again, and thank you very much for coming in.